It's strange, isn't it? How we measure greatness. How we look at a man like Alexander the Great, one of the most formidable military commanders in history, and forget the quiet foundations beneath the roar of his conquests. Everyone knows the legend. They talk of his victories, his strategy, his blood-soaked path to empire. They speak of his brilliance on the battlefield. They don't mention the silent whisper of wisdom he learned in the corners of a quiet room, the teachings he carried with him through deserts, over mountains, across rivers, to places unknown, from someone who believed in a different kind of power. Aristotle didn't teach Alexander how to fight. He didn't teach him how to wield a sword or lead an army. No, Aristotle taught Alexander how to wield the world. He taught him to look beyond the blade, beyond the glory of empire, into something much deeper, something that, if you think about it long enough, might make you realize the true weight of power. Let's look at it, shall we? 1. Knowledge is the true power. It wasn't the size of Alexander's army that made him great. It wasn't the number of swords he wielded. It was his understanding, his insatiable thirst for knowledge. When he stood in front of the walls of Tyre, when he gazed across the desert sands, it wasn't the distance that separated him from victory. It was his ability to see connections others didn't. Aristotle taught him that every man, every soldier, every battle, every city, every place, every time in history, it was all part of the same endless web. You see, while Alexander's contemporaries were thinking in terms of borders and kingdoms, he was thinking in terms of ideas. And those ideas? They connected the dots of history. He understood the concept of Hellenism, how to take Greek philosophy and culture and plant it in foreign soil, blending, growing, expanding. Every decision he made, every move he took, was an attempt to shape the future by using the knowledge of the past. Every decision came from a mind that didn't just learn facts, it understood patterns. This is why Alexander was unbeatable, because while others looked at land as something to own, he looked at it as something to cultivate, something to share, something to connect. And this was the lesson he learned from Aristotle. Knowledge, not power, creates dominion. 2. The measure of a man is his virtue. Now, we speak of the empire he built, the lands he conquered. We see the legend of Alexander, the unstoppable force, the relentless conqueror. But where do we fail to see what truly made him him? It was his virtue. It was Aristotle who taught him that leadership was not about dominance. It was about moral strength. Think about it. In a time when men were measured by the blood they spilled, Aristotle told Alexander that true strength was in the restraint of that blood. Alexander understood this. You don't crush people to lead them. You show them something they can believe in. The world Alexander created wasn't one of constant violence. It was one of ideas and culture. He didn't just take land, he merged it, he nurtured it, he respected it, and that was Aristotle's influence. He taught him that virtue, the quiet, unshakable strength of character, was more important than any battle won or any city burned. Alexander didn't rule by fear, he ruled by respect. He respected those he conquered, and in return, they respected him. Not because they feared him, but because they knew the man before them embodied something far greater, and that is what Aristotle planted in him, a leader with virtue, a leader who understood that the true strength comes from the inside. It comes from your heart, and it echoes louder than any sword ever could. 3. Mastery of emotion is mastery of the world. Emotions, chaos in the mind, chaos in the body, chaos in the world. Aristotle taught Alexander this. The mind is the king of the body. Without control over the mind, you are but a slave to your emotions. You cannot rule a world if you cannot rule yourself, and Alexander learned this in ways no one could imagine. In the midst of war, Alexander was never swayed by anger, never driven by fear. He commanded the respect of his soldiers not by fear, but by his ability to keep his own emotions in check. He knew when to strike, and more importantly, he knew when to be silent. His restraint in the face of turmoil, his patience when his men faltered. His ability to make decisions not based on the heat of the moment but on a long-term strategy, all of that was Aristotle. The emperor understood what many today still cannot grasp, that your emotions are not your enemy. They are your tools. They must be mastered. If you allow anger to control you, then you have already lost. If you allow fear to dictate your choices, you will never move forward. Aristotle showed him this. He showed him that the key to true power is in how you control yourself. It's not the world around you, it's the world inside you. 4. The world is a mirror of you. Alexander believed in conquering the world. But what if, in reality, the world wasn't something to conquer? What if it was a reflection of yourself? What if the way you see the world is the way the world sees you? Aristotle understood this, and Alexander began to understand it too. Every battle, every challenge, every new culture Alexander encountered, it was not just about vanquishing the enemy. It was about understanding them, understanding yourself, and understanding the world as one. Aristotle taught him to look inside himself, to see not just a conqueror but a man, a human being connected to everything around him. And what did Alexander find in those moments of reflection? He found that what you conquer outwardly is merely a reflection of what you've already conquered within. This lesson was critical. It shaped his actions on the battlefield, in politics, and in his interactions with others. He knew that true mastery was not in dominating others. It was in mastering yourself, your reactions, your thoughts, your spirit. 5. Excellence is a daily commitment. Alexander did not become great overnight, and Aristotle never promised him that greatness would come easily. What Aristotle gave him was the understanding that greatness is built daily, brick by brick, choice by choice. Excellence is not a destination, it's a process, a way of life. Think of Alexander's life, the sheer volume of work he put in, the battles, the training, the learning, the listening, the leading. It wasn't a momentary spark of brilliance. It was the result of years of commitment. Aristotle taught him that this commitment is the foundation of greatness, and it's a lesson Alexander internalized and carried with him every single day of his life. Excellence, true excellence, is a habit. It is not the grand gestures, the accolades, the victories. It is in the small daily actions. It is in the routine, the discipline, the willingness to give everything day after day. Alexander understood this. He didn't wake up one day as a conqueror. He woke up every day and chose to be one. That was Aristotle's influence. And here we are, left with the quiet echo of what made Alexander more than just a conqueror. It was the wisdom he carried, the lessons he took, the truth he lived by. And that's the power of learning, isn't it? The quiet, steady force that guides us, shapes us, molds us into something greater than we were before. If you look closely, you'll see it's not about being the strongest. It's about being the most disciplined, the most virtuous, the most knowledgeable. That's the foundation of true greatness. And what did Alexander leave behind? More than cities, more than battles. He left a legacy that teaches us one thing. True greatness is quiet, it's relentless, and it's built every single day.